Willie Clark, good evening. We are talking about a monumental episode of
What a
television.
what a week for WandaVision.
What a week for WandaVision. We are talking episode 4 tonight, titled, and they do have titles. You
Okay.
corrected me last week, and you were 100% accurate. They all do have titles, and they're all TV themed. Episode 4 is titled "We Interrupt This Program," and what an apt name. What did you think of episode 4?
Oh, fantastic. And before we really dive into it, I was surprised how much they showed of 4 before the episode actually came out. When they released this little teaser and I sent it over to you. And I was like, we're sitting here trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and they're just gonna show us. Here we go. But this was a fantastic episode of TV, and everything I wanted this show to do. And also, one of the things that I think we can dig into is this may be everything I wanted X-Men and Dark Phoenix to do too. So
Yeah, it was a big swing. I'm glad you liked it. So let's just get right into it. What was your favorite thing about the episode?
Dark Wanda at the end, her turn there was so good. Also, I love that mug. I haven't seen that mug before.
Thank you. Yes, the DL.
With the side, yeah, that's fantastic. I really don't think we've seen range out of her as Wanda like that before. And that much of a switch. I mean, she's gone from playing a over-the-top caricature of herself performing on a fake TV show,
yeah,
to she's gonna fuck some stuff up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so her Breaking Bad was absolutely my favorite part of the episode.
Loved it. It's something that we talked about last week that we really wanted, and something that we accurately predicted. Out of the 20 predictions we made, that's the one that I think came true. Everything else went out the window.
If we throw enough at the wall, we'll be right eventually.
Exactly. But I really did love that also. It was brilliant. Elizabeth Olsen really crushed it, and
you froze, but I'm hoping you unfreeze.
Oh, are you back? We lost you.
Yeah, I lost you too. Yeah.
Wanda blinked us out.
Yeah, that's okay. We were getting too close to the truth.
Exactly. Anyways, I like Wanda. I like Dark Wanda.
I am so here for Dark Wanda. I think I texted you this when we right after I finished watching it, but if she becomes the next big bad in the MCU, I'm 100% here for it. I don't need anyone else. Just give me her, all in.
You might get it in a movie.
I can see that actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she can do it for sure.
And I feel a little. As a non-comics book reader and as a non-Marvel super fan, I've always said that Scarlet Witch, just from watching the movies, has been my favorite Avenger, and I think I feel justified now.
Yeah, they were giving you something to really dive into.
They're giving me something to point to and be like, this is why.
Yeah, for sure. Vindicated for sure.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the episode, and this was a toss-up between what I was most surprised by and my favorite, but it was the reverse snap. So this episode literally starts off with Monica Rambeau being basically re-put together from Tony Stark, or actually, I'm sorry, Bruce Banner, the Hulk's second snap where he brings everyone back. And it was horrifying. And I'm like, this is incredible how this was handled, because we've only seen the reverse of this. And then when people come back, it's in a fun moment. We don't see them literally reverse ashing out back into existence. So I really just thought that was incredibly well handled, especially to do it in a hospital and everyone's freaking out.
It's very unsettling.
Yes.
And I think that obviously the episode starts off assuming you've watched the rest of the MCU. And I texted you about this too. It was a little confusing for me because I forgot that the second snap kept that time jump.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, I thought they came back like right as soon as they. So a little confusing, I think, for people who aren't super dialed in. But it's a very drastic way to open an episode, especially, I mean, if you just look at some of the shots and stuff, they're doing these long panning shots down these hospital corridors, and we've been watching, sitcom square cube stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very unsettling, I think, for the purpose, setting the tone of what the episode will eventually turn into. What surprised you the most about this episode?
Oh, I have to go with seeing Dead Vision.
That was mine too.
That was, oh, jeez, I lost you again. No, I'm on the good internet. Hopefully we can fix these. We'll just fix it in post.
We're back again.
Okay, I don't know what it's doing.
Yep, who knows? Yeah, Dead Vision was mine as well. But talk to me about Dead Vision.
That, I mean, I legitimately, like, I'm squeamish, and like I gasped. I was almost off the couch. Like that is the closest, I think, to a jump scare that the MCU has ever had. And it's like, and it's not, I'm like, it's creepy.
Yeah.
Like
it's really weird.
And then, and like, even, and like, if you think about it for a second, it only gets creepier.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, so she's just parading this dead, like, vision around in this playhouse. Like, yes. Okay. No big deal. Like, no big deal.
I rewatched it, and in that scene when he enters, we're close on Wanda and we can't see him fully.
Okay.
But if you pay attention to him, he is the Dead Vision the whole time until she spins around and then sees Dead Vision, and then like they cut back to her and then they cut back to him, and then he's normal Vision. So it really is that. It's really like she's reanimating this corpse of her lover. And the whole time, I thought that was a really nice touch to have him enter blurred as Dead Vision.
That's pretty good. That's some good shit.
Pretty good. Yeah, it really got me. Really effective. They put it in the end title sequence too. You actually go into his eye before which I was like, that is awful. But is there anything about this episode that you didn't like?
Yeah. So, two things I want to mention. One of which may make me a liar from last week. But I do think, like, I'm kind of a little disappointed that it's now become a regular TV show. And I know last week I was like, God damn, if we don't get anything exciting, I'm giving up on this show. But I mean, that as I was watching it, I was like, dang, they could have had the gig could have gone on a little longer, I think. I mean, I do. And so one of the things I thought about, with them very preemptively tipping their hand on the reveal this week, is I wonder if that was because they were worried about people turning in. Is they were like, hey, it's going to be exciting this week. Don't worry. We're not going to give you any of that boring sitcom stuff anymore. The other thing that I thought was a little, we talked about this a lot with Mando, and it's something that I do think I'm kind of sensitive to, is just how things are set up, and the whole setup of them being like, oh, can't you just feel the dark energy? We can't try to walk in there because we can feel it. What was a little too much like afternoon cartoon drama for me to buy. Yeah. Like there needed to be some explanation for why they weren't willing to just walk in there. Besides, they felt it in their jimmies.
Right.
But those were my two big things.
Yeah. I clocked the not walking into the field also. I thought that was silly, but I liked how Rambo got sucked into it, almost like she was chosen. And I don't really, obviously, we don't really know what the deal is. We'll get to it in Comics Corner because I have a thing about it. But yeah, I bumped against that too. I was like, that's a little annoying.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't like, and this is more of a structural thing, and I think your point is, we can apply it to this too. Is the show has a bit of a pacing problem? I think like it's not all released at once, and because of that, I think you're right that they had to make some decisions based on that. But the thing I didn't like is that we are now halfway through the show, and we currently don't know what the stakes of this are. Like we have no idea what is like. I guess now the stakes are there are real people in the bubble with Wanda. And that's it. But we don't really know like what happens if Wanda stays in there. We don't really know like is anyone in danger? Is the world in danger? Is the universe like we don't know right now we don't know why we should care other than the fact that we know who Wanda and Vision are. So that was a little frustrating for me.
That's a good point. And I mean, and it's even because what did he say? He said he was tracking a missing persons, right?
Yes.
And so we don't know. I'm assuming that person is Wanda, but we don't necessarily know.
I don't think it's Wanda, and I think it's purposely unanswered. And I'll get to it.
Okay.
Because I have a thing about that also. But yes, you're right. The conceit of the episode, this whole thing starts with Agent Wu. If you're unfamiliar, he was from Ant-Man and the Wasp. He is for the FBI, and he is tracking missing persons. Who teams up with Swords, Maria Rambeau.
Also, getting her there, also kind of sloppy. Like,
someone needs to do a favor for someone. Yeah. Very sloppy there. Anyways, they get to a town, and the local police don't even know that WestView is a place, which is like, okay, so what's really going on with Wanda's thing? Is she erasing memories? Like, can they not see it? It's all very like not. It's not neatly done, and I don't know if that was on purpose or economically for the story. They just needed to do some things. They needed to take some liberties.
And it's actually interesting because I do think so. While we're on the subject, one of the other things that I kind of don't like is it still doesn't make sense to me really exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I get it conceptually, but so is Wanda distributing a TV show version of her own reality because she wants it to be picked up? Like, is she hoping to win Sweeps Week? Like, it doesn't. Like, I get how what they're trying to do, but I don't think that it still doesn't quite make sense. And it's like it's close to where I could end up loving this series, but never completely reconciling with the main concept.
I have a thing for you about it. I'm going to save it. I have a Comics Corner for you about that specific question.
Okay.
What else did you like about the episode?
Oh man. Wait, like or not like?
Like.
Okay. Let's see, I mentioned Wanda. TV show. Dead Vision. I mean, I keep coming back to Dark Wanda at the end.
That's fair.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention. Not off the top of my head. What was some of the other key points?
I mean, the biggest thing I liked outside of what we've already mentioned is that it was set almost completely in the real world. Like, I like that we weren't jumping back and forth. We were just very set in a place and time, and we were like dealing with what is happening, and we watched them figure it out.
Well, and one thing that was kind of cool too, is it did kind of give us the answers of like who was watching and taking notes and stuff like that.
Yes.
But the other thing that I thought was interesting was we saw scenes that they weren't getting to see.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff that Wanda for them blinked through,
yes,
we had gotten to see already. Which
right.
is, again, now I'm like, okay, so how come I got to see them, but they don't get to see them? So,
right. Yes. We're inceptioning this a little bit.
Yeah,
Like, we don't know what layers are there.
Yeah. But still, it's like I said, this could be one of those things where if you think about it too hard, the whole thing falls apart. But if you just enjoy it, like, it's doing cool stuff.
Yeah, agreed. All right. The last thing I want to mention before we jump to in and outs is you mentioned the missing person.
Yes.
So I think that will become important. I will get to it in just a moment in one of the in and outs, but I do want to just put a pin in the fact that who is the missing person that we're tracking, because it was never named and not brought up again. So let's jump to the in and outs. All right, number one, the reverse snap.
In.
Cool, me too. Loved it.
Yeah.
The SWORD acronym, which is not comics accurate, but the SWORD acronym in the show was Sentient Weapon Observation and Research Division.
I'm going to say out just because I think both SWORD and SHIELD having acronyms is super dumb.
Yeah, well, yes. I'm out on it also because I don't know, I just didn't like it. Okay.
I mean, and it's just I also, like, as someone, I didn't know about SWORD until you explained it to me.
Yeah.
So as someone coming at this with no knowledge of the comics, I understand there's going to be some things that I'm not super excited about.
Yeah.
But why do I care? It's another, you know what I mean? Like, it's another acronym agency that does, like,
it's just, I mean, in the comics, it's just the space version of SHIELD. In this show, it's second SHIELD because SHIELD no longer exists. So
yeah, and I mean, and
fine.
I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more as we keep going, but I think if they had done something to tie it a little closer to SHIELD, I mean, I don't want to just say, hey, bring Nick Fury in, because I think that's the cheap way, like, sure, they could do that and that would be great. But even if it was just something, one line where it's like, oh yeah, like, we formed after SHIELD went away, or something to tie it into something I'm familiar with from the movies, I think I would have been on a little firmer ground, just to why I cared about this place at all.
Yeah, the only thing I noticed about that is they mentioned Rambo's mother, who is Maria Rambeau from the Captain Marvel movie, and they say she was one of the founding members of SWORD. But, like, that's kind of a throwaway thing. So I'm out on it.
No, and it's also like I loved Captain Marvel. I couldn't tell you which character that was from Captain Marvel. Who's like? Was it Brie Larson? No. Who? Okay.
Okay, SWORD enlisting a bunch of scientists in various fields, including Dr. Darcy Lewis, played by Kat Dennings from the Thor movies.
Wait, she was in Thor?
She was in both Thor movies, yes.
I just see her as, all I see her as now is the girl from what's the sitcom? Two Broke Girls or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-huh.
I'm out because I do not like that actress.
And yeah.
I don't know why, but I just don't. She has a shtick, and I don't like that shtick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a thing about this also. We'll get to it. More of in terms of, like, the business sense rather than the story sense. Story sense, fine. Like, if you just need another character to ham fist in that people know, great. We got Agent Wu in there, who I did like from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I think that he's always fun.
He's great.
Yeah,
he's really cool.
Randall Park.
Did you notice? So I can't take credit for this. Twitter noticed this. I didn't. The card trick he uses.
The close magic. Yes, I loved that.
Okay.
A very funny thing from Ant-Man and the Wasp, a movie I do not like at all, but
Ooh. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. The townspeople are all real people that Wanda has taken over, except for, I freeze framed this. They all have names, they all have driver's license, except for Agnes.
Yeah.
Agnes has no name and no driver's license. Again, because, and I've been saying this literally since Jump Street, because she's Agatha Harkness. Now, for a show that is so overtly implying that, why still the cloak and dagger with that? Like, why? No one is going to know who that is except for hardcore nerds. So when they do the reveal, unless it's really well handled, that isn't going to land for like 99% of viewers of this show. So I don't know why that's a ruse that they're still on. But I did like the fact that she didn't have a name or a license. And my theory is perhaps that she is the missing person that he's tracking, but under an alias.
Okay. Okay. So what I thought they were going to do with that, which I was really, really excited for, is I thought they were going to have their identities, because all of them were relatively recognizable actors and actresses.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to have their identities be their real world identities.
Okay.
And they were going to have
Gotcha.
it, and they were going to have it where it was like Wanda brought them in to play characters on her sitcom.
I like that a lot.
I liked that a lot too.
Because then you're really playing with the audience, like as us watching it, are like, are we in Wanda's universe?
And especially, and fuck, I can't remember her name. But the mom from That 70s Show.
Yes. Yep.
Like, she is very classic sitcom mom. So, and because I believe when they started naming people, I believe they started with her.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dang. I was like, this is going to be so cool. Wanda picked sitcom stars from real life to star in her fake sitcom. And I mean, that's not what they did. So
I'm disappointed now. I loved that idea.
Right?
That is fantastic.
I thought it was so cool. And so I'm out. Oh, we're on in and outs, right? I'm out.
We're out. Okay. All right, next one, Dark Wanda.
Oh, so in.
Yeah, we're in on Dark Wanda. Dead Vision.
Absolutely in.
Yeah, loved it. Okay, I'm going to read you some bits of dialogue, and then you can tell me if you're in and out on them. Vision. We don't have to stay here. We can go wherever we want. Wanda, no, we can't. This is our home. Vision, are you sure? Wanda, don't worry, darling. I have everything under control.
When you say it like that, and I feel like if I was reading it on a script page, I'd kind of throw up in my mouth.
It plays really well in the show.
It does.
Especially, we can go wherever we want. She says, no, we can't, obviously, because this is the only place where he can exist. And he says, are you sure? And she says, I have everything under control. Like, just doubling down on Dark Wanda. I loved it. I love that exchange. But I think you're right. When you just read it on a page, it like feels schlocky.
Yeah.
Feels sticky, but I really loved it.
They're doing some work.
They are doing some work. Paul Bettany, my last In and Out has a Paul Bettany thing, but like he's great. He's phenomenal.
Except when he's acting drunk.
Yeah. yeah. Okay. Rambeau is thrown out of the field, and as she is being attended to by the sword agent, she says, it's Wanda, it's all Wanda.
No, I'm in.
And loved it. I loved it because this is not something else that someone else is doing. This isn't a mind thing. She is not being controlled by anyone. This is literally just all her. She has the power. She is arguably on, in the top tier of strongest Avengers. So I really loved it. Okay, last one. Vision looks concerned after Wanda makes her I have everything under control speech, and he says, what should we watch tonight? Or no, I'm sorry. She says, what should we watch tonight? he looks concerned, and then the aspect ratio switches back to the square box of the TV, and Hendrix and Curtis Knight's Voodoo Child starts to play on the credits.
Yeah, man.
Loved it.
Though I will say, if we now get 2 more episodes of just regular sitcom, I might complain.
Yeah. I think they're going to play with it, and I think they're going to go back and forth now. But
I will leave room in here for me to argue with myself next week, but I think the best case forward for the show is it going back and forth. Yeah. Going forward. I think now that we've broken the seal, I think you need to jump back and forth. And there's so many things you can do with that.
Yep. Agreed. All right. We're jumping over to Comics Corner. I have a few things for you. Number one, and we're going to get into this in our main discussion topic, but we are hurtling towards the same ending that Avengers Disassembled had, in which Wanda is revealed to be the big bad, and she is saved, or she is taken away at the end by a character, which we will, again, get into in a minute. But for those of you clocking the House of M Avengers Disassembled train, we are rolling right on schedule. Okay, my next thing. As Agent Woo is writing, like as they start to figure out what's happening, he writes down on a big whiteboard a bunch of different things. So something on the whiteboard is like, who's behind this? And it says like Skrulls, ? But one of the sections is things we don't know. And there are 4 bullets under them. And the 4 bullets are, number 1, why the hexagonal shape of WestView is like a literal hexagon.
Yep.
Number 2, why sitcoms. Number 3, same time and space. Number 4, is Vision alive? So let's save hexagon for a minute. Why sitcoms? So this is something that you brought up earlier. Something that was told, a theory that I read and that was told to me, which I like, is that perhaps sitcoms is something that Wanda and her brother watched in Sokovia, like American sitcoms that made them feel good or like normal kids because they were growing up. And I don't know if Sokovia is like a third world nation, but it kind of feels that way. So what's your reaction to sitcoms were like Wanda and Pietro's comfort food in their childhood?
I like that a lot, actually.
I think there could be something there.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's interesting because I think they're just playing with so many things here, because I also think there's this weirdness going on because female characters in sitcoms very much only wanted one thing, which was children.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what she's going for. So if they're starting at a point of Wanda is really concerned about family and she wants to have a family with Vision, then I can also see it makes sense for her to latch on to American sitcoms that way.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different ways they could play at it. I could also see them like turning this on their heads a bit, because I think there's also, we have different expectations and different expectations of what female characters can do and can represent now than we did in those sitcoms. So it's interesting because it's almost kind of diminutive to have that be her main goal, is just to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also interesting when you have one of your most powerful characters, when you have something so constricting being their main want, and it being something that they can't make.
Yes.
So there's a lot of stuff going on here.
There's a lot of levels to it. Yeah. I like it. The one thing I thought about the sitcom thing is Wanda picked something that always had a happy ending. Like, because when you think of sitcoms, at the end of really each sitcom episode, it just enters back to the status quo.
Yeah.
So usually no one dies or any bad things are resolved at the end. And I think maybe her trauma after losing Vision and with Endgame and Infinity War being dusted and coming back is she picked something where she knew there was always going to be a happy ending. But
it wasn't like she could pick comics.
Yeah, exactly though. It's not like she could choose to just be an Avenger again because like that led to the death of her love. So the other, so I'm gonna get to time and space with the hexagon, but the other question was is Vision alive? And I think we got that answered. I think the answer is no. Vision is not alive. This is if any part of him is alive, it's only through Wanda's like psyche.
Yeah.
There's some weirdness because he seems to have free will, but she's like reanimating his free will a little bit.
No, and I mean, and it's also weird. I mean, we talked about this last week, where you know, characters in the sitcom seem comfortable opening up to him, where they're not necessarily comfortable opening up to Wanda.
Yes.
Which is also interesting because presumably, I mean, it seems that no one, I mean, Rambo knew what was going on. She was playing along.
Yes.
So it doesn't, it seems like everyone else is also doing the same thing. Like they know that they have to play along so Wanda doesn't blow them up into a million pieces, presumably.
Yes.
So it's interesting, you know, we talked about last week this idea that maybe they were appealing to Vision to get to Wanda. I kind of have to say that's maybe not the case anymore, because if Vision only exists through Wanda, then they're still revealing to Wanda that they know what's going on.
I don't know if they know that though. Because if Wu doesn't know if Vision's alive, and they know, like, if they are aware of the world, they know that she's an Avenger, and they know that he's Vision. So they might think...
They might think that that's actual Vision and not...
Yes. So they might think that they're confiding in another Avenger, be like, hey, Vision, any chance you could help us out and get us out of here? And they don't know that they're talking to her.
Okay, I like that a lot, actually. I think that checks a lot of boxes. I think that it shifts a lot of things to line up really well. Yeah.
Could be. The Vision thing is, I think, the most interesting part of the show to track for me is who's talking to him when and what are they talking about, and like to what extent is he conscious. But okay, last thing, the hexagon and the same time and space. So in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, now when I initially saw the field, my initial thought was the Mysterio tech from Spider-Man Far From Home. I don't think that's what's going on anymore. However, when Rambo is thrown through, it goes through like a hexagon sphere. And then when they show the town of WestView, it's in a big hexagon. So in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and in the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride, Cosmic Rewind, coming to Epcot, there is a similar thing called the Universal Neural Teleportation Network. Now, this is not I saw this shared around, like, why is anybody talking about this in WandaVision? So the Universal Neural Teleportation Network. So it's virtually the same visual of the hexagons and things being blown through. It's used in Guardians of the Galaxy, is basically kind of the same way hyperspace is used in Star Wars.
Okay.
They're jump points, so they get you from one place to another. However, how it can be applied to this show is perhaps Wanda has created a pocket universe in the 2800. Like this specific space could literally be in space, or like some part of it. Like she could actually be in space somewhere and just putting the pocket universe in, because people are jumping in and out of it. So it's just something, I don't know if it's gonna manifest into something. Obviously the hexagons are gonna mean something. I initially thought it was the shape of Vision's like Infinity Stone on his head, but it's a little bit different. So we could get an Epcot connection here to the reason why everything's a hexagon. But that's it for Comics Corner. So let's jump into our main topic, our main discussion topic. Did I lose you again?
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Okay, still there. Okay. Okay, so Elizabeth Olsen in a report said that eventually during the show, there will be a Luke Mandalorian level cameo.
So,
what is your reaction to that, and who would be your choice for who the Luke level cameo is?
So apparently, so I know I sent you this, and I know I'm revealing. Did you read her actual quote?
I did not.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't either. So apparently, all she said was that a big cameo was coming, and that the article made the equivalence to Luke.
That's devastating to me.
So,
well, let's pretend like she didn't say that.
Yeah, we may have jumped the gun a bit. I think so. So, do we want my wish list or do we want my realistic list?
Let's start with our realistics, and then we'll go to wish list.
Realistic, I think it's probably Tony. I think that Iron Man ties together the MCU right now. And if she's bringing dead people back, why does it have to just be Vision?
Yeah. Like, would it be alive Tony, or would it be like hologram Tony, or Wanda projecting Tony?
I think Wanda projecting Tony.
Because one of mine was actually Cap, but Wanda projecting Cap, because Cap was like kind of like a surrogate father to her in Civil War.
I could see Cap too. That sets up really nicely with Falcon and Winter Soldier coming.
Yeah, there you go. Brand unity, alignment, get people on the content train. I think Tony or Cap would make sense.
It's Mickey and Donald.
Yeah, exactly. Any other realistic options for you?
I mean, I realistically think that I think that almost any of the Avengers are probably on the table.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Spidey and Doctor Strange would make sense.
Doctor Strange and Spidey make a lot of sense. Doctor Strange makes a lot of sense because I think it's no secret that this is expecting to, lead very much into his next movie, which the title of is totally escaping me.
Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness. There we go. So, which they've said is going to kind of be their first horror movie type thing. And I mean, we've seen Dead Vision, so
we've seen Dead Vision.
It could tie into that. But yeah, I mean, I think at this point, almost any of the, let's say, A-list Avengers, I think are big enough cameos that they could just walk in and people will be happy.
So. Yep, agreed. I had all those as well. I think Doctor Strange is the cleanest to come in at the end and be like, I'll take over from here, because he's going to go right into his movie. I don't know why I delivered that line like that, but I did. My other two possible make sense are Quicksilver, her brother. I think she could force project him into town. And then a wish list for me, but I actually think a realistic thing is Spader as human Ultron. Or just James Spader in and of itself. Like, I think that that's too easy to do, and he's so good that they wouldn't not do it.
I could see that, yeah.
So I'm gonna watch.
There's isn't there something with like part of Vision and Ultron's consciousness might be in the stones or something like that too?
Yeah, so
maybe.
So Vision is made up of Tony, Bruce Banner, Ultron, and Jarvis. Like, Vision is a composite of those four brains, as you will, along with a half flesh body that was made by the Doctor in Age of Ultron that Ultron murders. So like, Vision is a composite of all that stuff, and that's what Shuri in Infinity War is trying to get out. Oh, and also the stone, of course, and also the Infinity Stone. So those 5 components. But give me some of your wish list cameos.
Oh man, I mean, my biggest wish list is if Ian McKellen floats down as Magneto, like it's game over. This is the best thing the MCU's ever done. Like,
And I sent you the last 3 panels of Avengers Disassembled, which they figure out Wanda is the bad guy. All the Avengers like, what the hell do we do? Because she just lit us up for an entire comic book. And Magneto just appears and he's like, give me my daughter. And they're like, okay, sir. And then he flies away. I would love that because it would be an incredible thing.
How is that not like the greatest ending to a season ever?
It's incredible. And actually, I messaged that to someone and they said, well, how, like, Ian McKellen is very old and how could he play Magneto? And I'm like, Mark Hamill is very old and he played a young Luke Skywalker, my friend.
True. I mean, however, there is also, we do have to take into consideration Days of Future Past Magneto.
Yeah.
Who is much younger and probably much easier to sneak into wherever they filmed WandaVision. Actually, I don't know. Wherever they filmed.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming they filmed it in the States, but I guess I don't actually know.
I'm sure we filmed in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Or with all the other MCU stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I'm sure they could get Fassbender in to reprise the Magneto role as young Magneto. It makes sense. Do you have any other wish lists?
No. Magneto's my number 1.
So Magneto is the best one. Like, let's just be honest. If you and I both had our druthers, we would choose Magneto 10 times out of 10. I'm going to give you the other 2 wish list options that I think would get the audience reaction and serve a similar purpose as Magneto. Number 1 is Jackman. Like, they don't have to say it's Wolverine, but he shows up and he appears, whether in town or at the end of the episode, where they're like, what do we do now? And they're like, we called in another expert to help us out here. And he just pulls up on his motorcycle and he's like all Wolverine. He's like, sorry, I'm late or something, or like, something stupid. But Hugh Jackman is Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman can do no wrong in my book.
Yeah.
So
we're in on Jackman.
100% in.
Now the last thing, my last wish list, and again, in the same vein, you know where I'm going with this, but I think it works in a really nice way where you don't have to totally commit to the Magneto thing if you don't want to, or the Hugh Jackman thing if you don't want to. But having Patrick Stewart as Professor X, who really does like epitomize the X-Men and they don't need to deal with like the James McAvoy Young thing where they do with Magneto. Like Patrick Stewart as Professor X, just wheeling in or whatever in the show, serving a similar function, and that is the introduction to the mutants. Like, he doesn't even have to say anything. Like, they could just cut to him, like someone in Sword could walk into a room and they say, well, we have to debrief someone or whatever, and they walk into a room and he's just there, and then we end. Like, it could even be a post-credit thing.
Now, what if they want to do that, but they don't want to tie themselves to the continuity of the old X-Men?
Yeah.
And it's someone else playing either Magneto, Wolverine, or Xavier. Is that less exciting or more? It's tough.
It's tough because I think for Magneto, I think for Professor X, and I think for Wolverine, those are so tied. Like the pop culture perception are so tied to those 3 actors.
Yeah.
That if you were just like, hey, this is Charles Xavier, and it's like just another actor, even if it's like a bald Brian. Yeah, even if it's like Bryan Cranston is bald and he's like professor or whatever. I mean, I'm just giving an example of an actor I like.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, um, Mark Strong, a British actor, could be Charles Xavier. So they're just like, hey, it's Charles Xavier. I think everyone goes, cool. But then they're like, oh, it's not Patrick Stewart. They're like, hey, guess what? This is Magneto. And they're like, cool. But they're like, oh, it's not Ian
Yeah,
McKellen.
but do they? But does the MCU want to take on all of that as canon?
If they're bringing back all the Spider-Men in Spider-Man 3, I think that Feige has a plan to multiverse it up. Doctor Strange is called the multiverse. Spider-Man 3 is going to be Spider-Verse. I think he has a plan to select what he wants, the good stuff, um, and add that in. That's why I think there's been a lot of rumors that the guy that Charlie Cox, the guy that played Daredevil in the Netflix shows, is going to be in She-Hulk. Like I think he is picking and choosing the stuff that he likes and adding that into the MCU in a smart way. So I wouldn't be surprised if all three, like McKellen, Stewart, and Jackman, all would end up in the MCU. Because if Tobey Maguire is going to end up in the MCU, then damn it, I want Magneto and Patrick Stewart in this thing. So yeah, we're tracking Magneto. If it's not Magneto, we riot. That's what we've agreed.
I'm down.
All right, last thing for you, and this is a cynical Disney Plus business thing.
Okay.
Because this episode again introduced Darcy from the two Thor movies and Agent Wu from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Two very minor characters in previous MCU movies. I didn't find, you mentioned this also, I didn't find any real story reason to have either of them be in the show other than people kind of knew them.
Yeah.
And I feel like it serves a business purpose more than a story purpose. The business purpose is, I think what Disney's plan is with something like WandaVision, something like The Mandalorian, the reason why they're released week to week is because you can hold on to a subscription for more than 1 month. Like Netflix, if you release all 8 episodes of Queen's Gambit, someone could sign up for Netflix, watch it in 1 month, cancel their service. If you release Mando 8 weeks apart, then you have at least 2 months of content. Same thing with WandaVision, and so on and so forth. Now we know Falcon and Winter Soldier is coming literally a week after WandaVision ends. So if you are an MCU fan,
You stick around.
you are there for WandaVision for 2 months, Falcon and Winter Soldier for 2 months. So that is 4 months of content right there. And if you are also into Star Wars, hey, Disney can tack on another 2 months towards the end. And at that point, are you really going to cancel your service for 3 months in the summer? So I feel like the business purpose is they need to weave as many connective threads as they possibly can. So like, sure, we can't go get a Nick Fury to be in WandaVision, but we can go get Kat Dennings from Two Broke Girls and Randall Park to be in this show because people know them and they're going to watch it because these characters might appear in the Loki show. We don't know. Or anything that is set up here. So I feel a little saddened by the fact that this is where we are because, as you said, like when they introduced Agent Wu and Darcy into this show, I was like, this doesn't really make any sense why they're here other than we know them. And I feel like this doesn't exist for any other reason or the fact that Disney needs subscribers and they are banking on the fact that people are going to watch because they've been in other things. And I guarantee you at some point after WandaVision is over, there's going to be an article that someone does that Disney saw a X percentage increase in the two Thor movies and Ant-Man and the Wasp on Disney Plus because people are like, who are these people? So what do you think about that? Has Disney Plus cannibalized their storytelling a little bit to stop the churn and keep subscribers on the ride?
So I think I'm one step below you on the pessimism ladder.
Okay.
Where I think that the reason they did weekly was not so much subscribers, but I think they looked at it and they said, "Hey, a show like Mandalorian, if it came out all at once, it would have been in the conversation in the cultural zeitgeist for a week. But if we release it weekly, it will dominate conversation for many weeks to come." Now, could that have been tied into, well, then people are going to keep subscribing? Potentially, but I hope, and again, I don't know if it's any better of a decision to keep it in the cultural zeitgeist, because that's still, oh, bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's still a business decision, not a story decision.
Yeah.
Ultimately. But it also, those decisions may have not been made by the same people. It may not have been, Filoni and Favreau that decided how the show was going to be released. And I'm torn on the universe building as a whole that they're doing here, because I do think it's kind of, this to me is the kind of universe building that they did in, the new trilogy of Star Wars, which made everything feel smaller, because it's like, oh, we're gonna bump shoulders with two random cantina dudes from, like, what the fuck are you doing? And that's the level that they're doing with having these two characters come back in WandaVision. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it's like, oh, who's around that we can pull, that we can just write into the story and make everything feel smaller. Yeah. Now, for like Marvel, it's tough because we're not talking about a whole universe here. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have the same players and characters reappear. So I'm torn. I haven't decided yet. I think is kind of where I'm at.
I agree. I don't think it's a bad thing. I like Randall Park. I think he's a great actor. I think he's fun in this. But I got even more pessimistic when I remembered we did a whole video about this, the Investors Day meeting, when Disney announced 10 Star Wars shows and 11 Marvel shows. Clearly, and we marked this like, hey, they're putting all their chips in the Disney Plus basket. But they're putting all their chips in the Disney Plus basket because I'm telling you, I think that this is a conversation being had at Disney. Can they string together 52 weeks of content where you are literally forced to keep your subscription? Can they put out 4 different Marvel shows a year, 3 different Star Wars shows a year, a Pixar show, a Disney animation show, and like a live action something for the kid? Like, can they appeal to everyone? Not just the hardcore Disney fans, not just the people with kids that are watching it for the Pixar movies and all that stuff, but like for just the casual Star Wars Marvel fans that are like, well, I can't cancel this thing because in 2 weeks the Book of Boba Fett is coming out, and then after that, Defender or She-Hulk is going to be there, or like Armor, or whatever the hell they're doing.
Oh, and
I am on the pessimist train.
And it's interesting that you mentioned too, like the spikes in their old catalog, because I do think you're right, and I do think Disney is noticing that, and I've seen a lot of comments about that pop up, and I do think we may see a even more of an incestuous Disney referencing itself. Which again, we have things, we've talked about this before, but if you look at something like Wreck-It Ralph 2, which I think did it very well, Kingdom Hearts, what have you, there's lots of ways that Disney has done this. There's lots of ways that Disney has very staunchly avoided this in the past. So it's now interesting where they're like, wow, we can reference old things because that's just going to make people go back and watch them. I'm not saying we're going to get Song of the South 2 or anything, but where there may have been a reluctance to bring in to reference something, like Clone Wars, like Rebels, where it's like, well, maybe everyone hasn't seen it. It's like, well, now everyone can go see it.
Yeah.
Now they
Exactly.
can. Now
Yeah.
they, now, not that I want to say, I do think a lot of Marvel people have been along for the whole ride, but they can do something where they open with the reverse snap. Like, well, why haven't you gone and watched all of them? You can. They're all right here. What are you doing? Stop your work right now. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Literally.
Mickey's all right here for you.
Don't you want to keep watching? Yeah, I don't know. It just like it felt a little, because I had the same reaction you did. I'm like, I don't really understand this, other than this is something that Marvel tends to do from time to time, but it doesn't seem to be a point to this specific story.
Well, and I mean, I think we've talked about this a bit before, but I mean, I do think it's interesting how different the approach is here compared to Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Where I feel like they almost made an unwritten rule in Mandalorian where they were like, season 1, we are going to establish this as its own show.
Yes.
And I don't know if that is just, by nature of the beast of bringing Filoni in for season 2, if it was always part of the plan, then I'm not sure. But I feel like there was very, very much a creed of, we are going to prove that Mandalorian deserves to exist as its own show. Whereas with WandaVision, I feel like they've gone in the exact opposite direction, where they're like, we don't care if this exists as its own show or not. This exists to be part of the spoke in the machine in the MCU.
Yep, agreed.
It's just a different handling of things. But it's also something that they've been building for 15 years now. So I don't know.
I would be shocked if WandaVision got a second season. I feel like this is a one and done. We have a specific story to tell, and we didn't want it to be a movie because it's a niche audience, but we made it an 8-episode Disney Plus, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned that before, and I do think I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these Star Wars and Marvel shows aren't shows in the traditional sense. They're 8-episode movies. I don't know. I don't want to get too too up our own ass about this stuff, but I think that some of the terms that we've used for media are kind of outdated at this point. And I don't think that's really happened, until Disney has kind of shaken this space up. I think that Netflix has kept a very clear line between, something like Stranger Things. You knew it was going to be a show. It was going to get multiple seasons. It was going to keep going. I think that Netflix has really tried to make TV shows on one side and movies on the other. And I think Disney Plus is blending them, and they're just making content.
Yep.
We're pumping out content, baby. Who cares what we call it? Put it out for a couple weeks. Do you want to tell a story for one season? We've got people around. Let's do something.
Yeah, there's a quote by the chief content officer of Netflix where he said the only difference between movies and TV are the time it takes to consume them. Or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he's basically like, there really exactly what you're saying. There really is no difference, except one takes longer to finish. It takes you 2 nights instead of 1. So I think Disney could be going all in on that thought process.
Well, and I do think one thing to keep in mind here too is I do think that the pandemic, I think, has really shaped things for Disney, because I think they've seen how, for better or for worse, how susceptible they are to, they had their 2 largest divisions, which are theme parks and movie theaters, go bye-bye for 12 months now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, what can we double down on that we can just do? And it's like, well, we can always do TV.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because it's almost in line with, you look at some of the old stuff that Walt used to do with ABC and, doing shows that tied into things they were doing in the park, or having Disneyland specials on ABC touring through the park. Like, this isn't necessarily a new concept for Disney, but it's taking it to a modern era. Yeah.
Yep. I think we are in that area firmly. But any last thoughts on episode 4 of WandaVision, now that I've dropped you into a well of despair?
No, I mean, I still think this is what I wanted from the show. To take the X-Men thing a little further, X-Men tried twice to get the Dark Phoenix saga right, and I don't think, really succeeded either time. And I think this could be Marvel flexing a bit and being like, yo, you think Dark Phoenix is cool? What about Dark Wanda? And I could really see them playing with this. And even if it's one season, I think my biggest hope right now is that whatever happens matters long-term in the MCU.
Yeah.
And I think that it will. Even if this is a one-season show and it was just an arc they wanted to do here with Wanda and Vision, I want it to have some actual stakes and repercussions. Absolutely.
Great. Well, Willie, thank you for joining me. We will keep track of all of the developments in WandaVision, WestView, as we go. Season 5, or episode 5 comes out in just another day, so we will be watching. Thank you again for joining me. And as always, we're going to end with our closing. Willie, take what you can.
And give nothing back.
All right. Have a good night, Willie.
See ya.